Hi, have you ever seen the old western movie The Good, the Bad and the Ugly? In a normal 1v1 Wild West showdown, the game is all about drawing your gun and shooting your opponent as fast as humanly possible, faster than your opponent. Now this wasn't so complicated, right? But let's actually make it a little bit more complicated, and of course, spoiler warnings for the old movie The Good, the Bad and the Ugly. In the end of the movie, these three guys are going up against each other in a free pod multiplayer free-for-all showdown. Now in a normal 1v1 there's always one winner and one loser, but this game could actually take a lot of different turns. For example, the good could fire at the bad and the bad could fire at the good, turning the ugly into the winner as he would only have to fire at the survivor. They could also fire in a circle. The good is shooting towards the bad and the bad is firing at the ugly and the ugly is aiming his gun towards the good. But this is where things could get a little bit strange. You see, the good want the bad to be faster than him and he want the bad to be faster than the ugly. Because if the good is firing and killing the bad won't be able to kill the ugly and then the ugly will kill the good. This kind of situation is called a Mexican standoff and is quite popular in Hollywood. They are replicating this scenario in a lot of different movies, for example The Hitman. But yes, you guessed it, we also have this situation, the Mexican standoff, the showdown, in a lot of different situations in competitive EDH. Here we have 4 players in a free-for-all multiplayer competitive EDH game, and all of them have a combo piece in their hand ready to go, but they are waiting for the timing window. You see, these players are currently in a Mexican standoff. And as EDH is a social format, depending on what different players choose to do, different outcomes might actually happen. So let's say it's player B's turn, and player B is trying to win. He puts Isochron Scepter on the stack, and all hell breaks loose. People are now throwing interactions all over the place, trying to prevent player B from winning the game, obviously. Now it's really difficult to become an arch enemy and overpower 3 opponents in both mana and hand size. That means that the usual outcome from here is that player B fails. He puts the Isochron Scepter into his graveyard and he passes turn to player C, who will now untap. And player A and player D might have tapped out and are unable to actually interact with what's coming. So player C basically just puts into his combo piece Thassa's Oracle into play and casts a Demonic Consultation in response to the ETB trigger and claims the win. He was able to do this because player B was trying to win before him. There is another outcome I would like to mention. You see up there on player A, he has Flash and Hulk in his hand. That means he can win in instant speed whenever he wants to. So I choose to make this example of player B trying to win with a sorcery speed win con, now passing turn, but before the turn is being passed, while everyone is tapped out, player A could potentially try to win the game, or even try to win the game during the battle of interaction flying all over the place. So when everyone has basically tapped out, it's player A's turn to actually do something about this. He simply put Flash and reveals Hulk and wins the game, while all interaction is on top of the Isochron Scepter. This is actually one of the arguments why people wanna ban Flash in EDH, because it's overpoweringly good inside the Mexican standoff, as you can win and basically ignore the turn order. I actually think it's also a positive argument for Flash staying active, as I kind of think the turn order is a problem. My opinion. Let's actually make this one really quick and briefly. Let's say player C cast Isochron Scepter in his main phase at sorcery speed. In response, player C cast Crop Rotation, finds Emergency Zone, cracks it, and cast Thassa's Oracle in instant speed, follows up with Demonic Consultation in response to the trigger, and claims the win in instant speed above the Isochron Scepter still on the stack. So I don't think that Flashhawk has a patent on winning whenever he wants to in instant speed, ignoring turn order. I would also like to mention that Angel's Grace Ad Nauseam could also win in instant speed whenever it wants to, depending on how they build the deck. Now, our Western heroes had a very strange metagame where they basically wanted one person to kill the other so they would be the only one surviving. That means that their outcome, win or die, would basically be determined by other people's decision. This is the exact same thing in EDH, as people are sitting there and staring at each other, waiting, listen, this is very important, for the timing window when they can actually go for it. Flashhawk is really good at this. If you want to be a really good Flashhawk player, you need to understand and try to find and identify the timing window. What everyone here is basically waiting for is that someone goes for it. Because when someone goes for it, the timing window might open. Because interactions might make sure that that player fails to combo off and the turn is passed. And preferably, the person that was trying to go for it was the person in the turn order just before you. So now you will untap and draw a card before everyone else, and now you have, listen, a much higher chance of win success compared to the player that first went for it. And as long as people are aware of this, we are basically going to sit there in our Mexican standoff, waiting patiently for the perfect timing window when we should go for it. But as cards are being hidden for us what our opponents have in their hand, so for example here in this scenario, people only have lands in their hand, and the playfield is actually open. It's a 100% success rate if player B's decide to go for it. But player B is sitting there and he sees player A with 4 cards in his hand, and player D with 4 cards in his hand, and player C with 4 cards in his hand, and player B doesn't know what he should do. Should I go for it? Should I pass turn? Alright, I will pass the turn. And I love it. Let me tell you this, cEDH is a game of psychological warfare. The first skill, as this is an educational video, is that you need to be able to identify if you are in a Mexican standoff and if you're going to lose the game by trying to combo off and win by and failing and then passing turn. So you basically need to figure out and try to understand and analyze what your opponent potentially could have inside their hand. This is actually a skill I think a lot of people is lacking, as player A believes that all you need to do is just assemble Flashhawk ASAP as fast as humanly possible and put it on the stack to claim the win, and then other players are theorizing and predicting that player A actually has the win because player A casted 2 tutors and they know that he's playing Flashhawk, so they are pretty sure he's gonna try and go for it, so they are keeping their mana open. 2 cards I would like to highly recommend here are Gitaxian Probe, that will let you look at an opponent's hand and just basically draw a card for just paying 2 life. It's a cantrip, it's great, you should play it. And then Thoughtseize for 1 black mana, target player reveals his hand, and you may choose a card that player is going to discard, and you will lose 2 life. It's something of a sorcery speed interaction, but I really like the part when you get to look and see what one of your opponents are up to. This takes us to skill number 2, figuring out what to actually do. So when you cast your Gitaxian Probe or your Thoughtseize, or when you figure out your opponent because some other knowledge that you have on that person, then you need to somehow construct a game plan that you're going to go forward with, that is going to make you get out of this and survive and win the Mexican standoff. I actually have a really good example of this from one of my gameplay videos. I'm playing my Thrasius Vile Smasher Slow Bomb Burn Bear deck, David is playing his First Sliver Food Chain deck, and Stefan over here in the corner is playing Curiosity Control Thrasius Vile Smasher. And very early in the game, everyone actually knew that all players had their combo assembled in their hand and were ready to go and win whenever they wanted to. For example, over here, David actually has one of his food chain creatures in play, and we all know that he has food chain in his hand because he casted an Enlightened Tutor and put the card on top of his deck, thus creating the Mexican standoff, where all of us had a different game plan. David's plan were hoping that I would go for it and try to win, so all of us would tap out, the turn would be passed on to him, and he would then win the game. So he basically just sat there, and you can basically see the board state of David compared to Stefan and me. Stefan's game plan were basically grind enough mana and interaction in his hand so he would be able to overpower me and just walk over all of my interaction and then just win the game, even though David and me were trying to stop him. And my game plan was basically sitting there waiting for Stefan to go for it, so he would tap out and then I would try to win on my turn. And I was actually provoking him trying to achieve this. Look here, I have a Crypt Cast. I don't know if you can see it, but this is a Crypt Cast, turning my swamps into more mana production, and I were extorting my opponents slowly but surely winning the game. So if the game would actually still just sit there, I would eventually win. I also have some other burn bears, some other ways that will slowly deal damage. My Wild Smasher were slowly killing them, so my game plan were very similar to Stefan. I was provoking Stefan, trying to force him to go for it, as well as producing more card draw and mana production along the way. In the end, there's a lot of different ways you could tackle the Mexican standoff, how you are going to win it, how you are going to come out victorious. One possible strategy could be to try and become unstoppable, being able to put your combo into play and win regardless of how many interactions your opponent has. This is actually something I've been doing lately with cEDH Weatherlight Captain. In my opponent's last end step, if I have the win, I will search and find Teferi Time Reveler. And from here, my opponents aren't allowed to cast spells. This means I will simply just put my combo pieces into play and win the game. You could do something very similar depending on your build with Boseyu, who shelters all. If you're running Nagella the Blade Blossom, you are probably really good at attacking and dealing damage to people's face, and you could potentially win the game beating someone until they're gone. But you could also view it as you are provoking that player. If you predict that one person, a specific player, has the combo in their hand, and you have, let's say you run Flash Hulks, you can win whenever you want to. But you don't think that you can win because there's so much interaction around the table that you won't be able to go through them all. But attacking one person, forcing that player to actually do something or lose the game. So you are basically attacking someone, decreasing their life total really low, giving them the only option to try and win this turn or pass the turn and lose the game. That person is definitely going to try to win the game, potentially failing, and then you win with your Flash Hulk combo. This is basically going back to the talk where different players' decision will lead to various different outcomes along the game. And this is where we are trying to make someone make a decision we want them to actually make. In the end, there's a lot of different ways you could potentially solve this situation, and I guess your creativity sets the limit. This is also where I think it's more to this game EDH compared to normal 1v1, where you're only putting cards on the table, turning them sideways, and resolving spells. And in my opinion, if you are thinking 1v1 only when you're playing EDH, I think you're playing a different game. I would like to end the video with a philosophical talk about how I view the game. So let's go inside my thinking brain. Oh, don't worry, you're not gonna get crazy in here, but hear me out. I view the game as a machine of ticking and clocking and moving and working. And all players are sitting, building on the machine, creating a game flow together, and that we are slowly moving forward towards a specific direction. And depending on what form of direction I want the game to take, I will try to affect the game, trying to go in a specific direction depending on what I want to happen, depending on what my strategy and game plan is. And I think there's a lot of social interaction and social decisions people can do that is going to shape this machine, creating different outcomes. And what I'm trying to understand and do is take control of the machine and trying to affect people, building different kinds of mechanics onto it, trying to create the game I want to happen, where the final outcome is where something is leaning towards my higher chance of winning the game. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video. If you like what I do and you wanna support me, consider sharing my videos or even checking out my Patreon page. Also, purchasing cards from the TCG Players website using the affiliate link down below will also help the channel grow. So a big thank you to all of you.